morning, beloveds. I overslept a little bit, which is okay. You should oversleep occasionally. Your schedule. When it impacts others, it's not necessarily a good thing, but I was reading an article on guilty pleasures, and our puritanical roots can really bite us in the butt. We are, as human beings, wired for pleasure. And when we shame ourselves for things that feel good, it takes away part of what makes us human. So, we think that we should be doing all the time. We should be productive. And we forget that we're human beings, and sometimes we are allowed to just be. And so, don't make every minute of your time about accomplishing something, about doing something. Make some time for yourself to do something that you enjoy that has absolutely nothing but value for you. Read, watch Hallmark movies. That is mine. I love Hallmark movies, mostly because they're always happy endings, and they don't require a lot of brain space for me to watch them. They all kind of have the same plot. So do something that there's no goal, there's no value. What society monetary value, that's the word I want. Something that has no monetary value. Do something that has no monetary value for you. Every now and again. Because the value to your brain is so important. The value of allowing your brain to rest. Because when we have problems and we allow our brains to rest, i.e., in my case, Hallmark movies, then my brain can rest, and then a solution will more likely come up than it would if I was just focused on whatever I was working on. So occasionally we need to forget the monetary value of what we do and just do things simply for the pleasure of them and for the allowing our brains to rest. All right? So that's my soapbox for this morning. Let's see what Ernest has to say. It is July 12th. It is Sunday. And today, our title is, I Express the Glory of God. Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God shall also glorify himself in himself. Okay, that's from John. That is 13:31-32. And John is considered the mystic gospel. John focused a little bit more on the mysticism of Jesus, the miracles, and the mystery of what he came to teach us, rather than the other three gospels, which are synoptic, because they gave us a synopsis of what Jesus' life was. You should read all four of them, but, if you want the mystery, read John. Can you tell I'm in a Bible wisdom class? All right, so perhaps this is one of the most profound thoughts Jesus ever gave to the world, for it really tells us that when humanity is glorified in God, then God is glorified in humanity. It means exactly this. Life is a mirror to each of us. And as we see the glory of God in this mirror, so shall this mirror reflect back to us that same glory. For Jesus says that if God is glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself. so shall the image and its reflection become one, even as the Father and the Son are one, in glory, in honor, and in majesty and might. No more exalted concept of divine union could possibly be given than this. Today, then, I glorify myself in God, and I glorify God in me, for I am in him and he is in me. As he is glorified in me, so I am glorified in him. I do give thanks for this intimate and complete union of my soul, in its center and its source. I do recognize in myself and in others the glory of the incarnated God, realizing that the one life without and within, continuously uniting within it. I proclaim its presence in everything, knowing that there is no great and no small. I proclaim its presence in the smallest as well as the greatest. All my affairs shall reflect the glory and power and the majesty and the might of the infinite Spirit. And all that I do shall proclaim his love, his life, and his light. Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. I am that person, and God is glorified in me today. Okay. So there's a band that I love, and I occasionally forget that they started out as a punk band. And whatever your opinions of punk bands generally have something to say. So I was running to them yesterday, and I'll go ahead and tell you who they are, the Goo Goo Dolls. And I have no idea which song it was, but somewhere in one of the songs he said, "When I look in the mirror, I see your light." That's what Ernest is talking about. When I look in the mirror, I see your light. I see the light of the living Spirit shining through my face in the mirror. Consciously. So, let's go back. Perhaps this is one of the most profound thoughts Jesus ever gave to the world, for it really tells us that when the Almighty is glorified in God, then God is glorified in humanity. Because we are God walking around in mortal flesh. We are spirit, in spirit stuff, in time. And it means exactly this. This life is a mirror to each one of us, and as we see the glory of God in the mirror, then so shall this mirror reflect back to us the same glory. So when we look in the mirror and see God, then God sees us. Okay, I'm not sure that I intended to go there with that, but okay. So think of the choices that we'll make when we look in the mirror and see God looking back at us. And see that loving God looking back at us. Not that scary accountant in the sky that we've been taught, but the loving God of creation, the loving God of beauty, the loving God of love, the loving God of expression. To see that looking back at us and knowing that it is loving us because we are an expression of it and it is learning through us. For Jesus said that God is glorified in him, God shall also glorify him in himself. So that last himself is the capital H. That's God. So when we value ourselves, then we are valuing God. And when we value God, God values us. I'm going to have to think about that one. God values us whether or not we value God. That's the good news. I'm sorry, my voice is a little weird today. God always values us, but think of what we can do when we value God and when we value the expression of God that we are. All right, so shall the image and its reflection become one, even as the Father and Son are one. When you look in the mirror and see God looking back at you, then you consciously and unconsciously open to the power of God flowing through you. Think of what you can do. Okay, so even as the Father and the Son are one, in glory, in honor, in majesty, and in might. All of that power that you are recognizing when you look in the mirror and see God looking back at you, through you. No more exalted concept of divine union could possibly be given than this. Looking in that mirror and seeing God looking back at you. Today then, I glorify myself in God, and I glorify God in me. That sounds like ego, but it's not. I glorify myself in God. I recognize that I am a part of God, that God flows through me. And so I glorify that God in me. Just as I glorify myself in that God. My glory comes from God. There's nowhere else that glory can come from like that. For I am in him and he is in me. Or, if that rings hard on your ears, for I am in she and she is in me. And as she is glorified in me, so am I glorified in she. Or her. Sorry. I do give thanks for this intimate and complete union of my soul with its center and its source. Gratitude. Recognizing that God is at the center of our being and God is the source of our being. Spirit is that center, that place where we go where nothing has ever been wrong. That's God. That spirit. That is the almighty living spirit. I think that's what he called it yesterday. The almighty living spirit. That is the creative expression. And I do recognize in myself and in others the glory of incarnated God. Realizing that one life without and within, consciously uniting with it. So he goes back to, we have to recognize that we are a part of God, that God is in us, and that God flows through us. Consciously. Because when we consciously take up that mantle of power, what can we accomplish? What can't we accomplish? We consciously take up that mantle that we wear. And allow it to flow through us as us. I proclaim its presence in everything. Knowing that there is no great and no small. There is nothing in the eyes of God because God does not recognize dimension. So no one is greater and no one is smaller. Everyone is of value. And we all have the same value in the eyes of spirit. In the heart of spirit. We all have the same value. All of my affairs shall reflect the glory and the power and the majesty and the might of the infinite spirit. That can sound like a lot of pressure, but it's not. Because there is no greatest and no smallest. And all that I shall do shall proclaim his love, his life, and his light. So when you look in that mirror, you see the light of God shining in you. You see the living spirit light in you, reflecting back at you. Now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. I am that person, and God is gloried in me today. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to proclaim the love, the life and the light of the radiant creative spirit in you, in us. And to go out and to do, but more importantly, to be. To be that life, to be that love, to be that light. And it doesn't require us to do anything more than consciously express that light. We don't have to be any more than we already are, because we already are everything that God has made us to be. And what we choose to do with it, that's your choice. You already are that light. You already are that love. You already are that life. You are that being. Now what are you going to do with it? All right. I am going to suggest that you do something loving with it, something kind with it, and something compassionate with it for yourself. You are the light of God. You are that radiant experience walking around. Let it flow through you. Let the love flow through you. And let that love be for yourself as well as others. All right. So, it is Sunday. At 11 a.m. we will have a wonderful service for you. July is the month of freedom, both for us and for in Ernest and for Reverend Jesse. So please join us back here, right here at 11 for the live stream. And we will, and then Reverend David will be on at 5. So make sure that you get some fresh air, that fresh perspective that will turn your brain over, and get some movement in. Run, hop, skip, dance, walk, jump, laugh, dance, sing. Whatever it is that you do that gets you moving and gets you going and gets you grooving. All right, beloveds, know that you are the beloved children of God, in whom God is well pleased, and that you are that radiant spirit looking back at you in the mirror. Have a fantastic day, beloveds.